Hi there, everybody. I'm Fred Thomas, and you are watching All Things Bike. And today, we are speaking with Dino Piskopanis of Fasturdays Racing Alliance, ButcherBox Cycling Team, and Atlas Sports. Dino, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Fred. I know it's been a while we've been trying to get on, so I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I know. Well, thank you for taking the time, making the journey. And let's start with your connection to cycling.
Yeah, sure. I joined the sport in terms of road cycling, and particularly, I'd say, pretty late in the game. But I was, for all intents and purposes, brought into the world of cycling through the family, really. We had a sporting goods business that evolved and turned into a bicycle shop. So at a very young age, my brother and I were, on bicycles pretty quickly and, really racing mountain bikes more than anything at the time.
Right.
And as things progressed, my background really comes into from a sporting side. As a soccer player and a scholarship swimmer in college. So post that and post graduate school, I did quite a bit of triathlons and running and things along that lines. But eventually came back to cycling, and it's been awesome. And
it's never too late.
Very passionate about the sport, so it's great.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's never too late. Masters cycling, it goes to 75 plus. And that's what gives me inspiration. Well, but you wear many hats. You run Fasturdays Racing Alliance. You're involved with the ButcherBox Cycling Team, and you're running Atlas Sports. Let's dive into Fasturdays Racing Alliance. What's that all about?
So the Fasturdays Racing Alliance, really what we did a couple of years ago, I had the benefit of crossing paths with Steve Cullen, and at the end of the day, we basically had kind of started this local chapter of a national, I would say, club. We basically decided, hey, let's try and do something different and potentially start a sports management company and try and change the model a little bit in terms of the traditional cycling team. So we basically started this sports management company called Fasturdays Racing Alliance, and it owns ButcherBox Cycling. So, ButcherBox, for all intents and purposes, is not so much a sponsor of the cycling team as much as it is a client of Fasturdays Racing Alliance.
Right.
And they, the funding that comes in, we provide them a number of services, business services, really, from digital marketing. We partner with, some of the country's best content, photographers, videographers, et cetera. The long-term goal is to certainly expand to other sports as well. And partner with the right partners that are looking for that partnership and the services that we offer.
Have you found that it's easier to find support and sponsors and
it's different really at the end of the day. I think going down the sponsorship, the 4-lane sponsorship highway, for all intents and purposes, is somewhat easy, right? I mean, going around and getting money isn't necessarily that difficult, but when you're kind of laying down the foundation for something different, you're picking up the shovel and digging out your own path, right? So it's definitely a challenge.
That's interesting. So you've got one foot in the sort of the management side of it, and then you've got another foot very much on a pedal with the team. I mean, just give us a sense of what's the biggest challenge from the executive side, from the management side, and what's the biggest challenge in terms of managing the team and getting people to turn up to races and all that.
So from the management side, making sure that we're staying focused on our goal and what our overall original goal is and was, right? It's easy to be distracted. There's a lot going on, so trying to stay focused on what that was and what the original plan was is always a challenge for sure. Just getting them to the start line for us is a win, right? From the start line to the finish line, it's all them, right? They're in there, right? But and on any given day, there's all sorts of challenges that can go wrong. Somebody loses a bike, somebody crashes, whatever it may be. We're solving problems all day. All season long.
And you're traveling a lot too, right? I mean, do you travel with the team, or what's
I particularly didn't travel too much this year. Anytime I had the opportunity, I definitely went with the team. But we were lucky enough that Steve Cullen was able to travel with the team to much of the national venue, which was great. Having him on the ground and having any one of the management team on the ground is always really good for the guys to support them from whatever it is, making ice socks to just being able to answer a simple question, get them a bike, whatever it is that they need. So having Steve be able to travel with the team this year was super beneficial. We certainly all have roles in the organization, but we definitely always cross roles as well, and we need to at the end of the day. We all have our swim lane, or try to. But Steve volunteered to kind of be the director sportif for the team this year, and it was great having him around the team. He was able to call us at any given moment, and one of the three of us, was able to get back with whatever we needed and respond. In cases where Steve wasn't there, one of us was able to get there. Or provide support to the team.
Right, right. So this is it sounds very organized and very professional. It sounds a lot more sustainable than some of the circumstances we typically hear about when we're talking about cycling teams. But
yeah, we try to think it's organized and try to make it organized. But there's plenty of room for improvement on all fronts.
But you're off to a great start. Well, let's talk about the Butcher Box cycling team itself. So give us a sense of who the riders are, where they're from. We have an elite team, elite men. We have elite women. We have a club team. Let's start.
Yeah, so we had started the team. I'll say the Butcher Box cycling team officially was really kind of launched, I would say, maybe two years ago. Prior to that, we had kind of this chapter that was set up that we were kind of working towards. So that we had a number of riders that we were taking on at the time across all categories scenario. But as we progressed, we really decided to just focus on the upper level or the elite level of the organization to really accomplish what the goal was for Fasturdays Racing Alliance. So as we did that, we had a great 2018. It was a good story. At the end of the day, it was a success for us. Even though we didn't win the top step on the podium, our goal, the prior year was just to not be last. Right. And somehow or another, we were able to cobble it together and really morphed into this really good story. And for 2019, we wanted to do it better, and we wanted to ensure that we could support those riders that were really competitive at the national level and were really delivering results. So, we had kind of all worked together to figure out, what we needed out on the courses, and what riders we would bring in to be able to kind of fill in those spots.
Yeah. Well, where were the riders from? Are they from all over?
Yeah.
Or
so
from
we're
the Northeast.
They're from all over the country for all intents and purposes. John Harris, Connor, they're from Connecticut. We have Alex, who's down in Georgia. You have Cesar, who's out in New York. Then you have Adam Shep's out in.
And is it your job to go out and try and convince them to join, or
yeah? So it's all of our jobs. Really, at the end of the day, we all kind of talk through the riders. We're constantly communicating in terms of the riders. Not even before we brought them on, we were trying to figure out what's the right mix. Are they going to gel? Because that was a big question at the end of the day. When we had our team camp, it was the first time a lot of these guys met. Yeah. And it was a matter of, are these guys going to gel, and is this going to turn into a team, right? Where they're making sacrifices for each other and they're supporting each other and really, delivering the results that we needed. We were ready to definitely make moves if things were happening. Right. But at the end of the day, we were very committed to these riders. They were, all the riders, I got to say, were amazing in terms of totally understanding where the organization is, totally understanding where we are, working back with us in management to make sure that, if they needed something or if something wasn't going wrong, we asked them to be vocal, we asked them to talk to us constantly. Right. There was always an avenue, one of the four of us, they would get to and let us know, hey, we need to make some quick adjustments, and we did that. So if we were something, we were flexible, that's for sure.
Yeah, you got to be.
And our riders were absolutely amazing, all of them. Sam's from the East Coast here as well. Spencer, has moved down to Virginia and so forth. But yeah, all the riders were amazing. They
how many people were on the team? And most,
So overall, we have about 20 people on the team. People. There's the kind of elite squad, and then there's the other categories underneath that. Right. But the focus was and is the elite team. Last year we did do a kind of a test case of our women's team. Yeah. And it was a test case really to see how can we do it? Are we going to be able to kind of sustain this and stand it up? And it was great feedback. It worked well. There's great plans coming down, and I can't reveal much of it for 2020 on multiple fronts, not just on the women's team, but on the men's teams as well.
Yeah, no, well, I heard on one of the podcasts that you had two guest writers, one from Australia, one from the UK, and they loved it. I mean, they
we had great, our transatlantic partnership. Yeah, we had great representation, a multinational team. So it was really cool. It was a great experience for them. It was a great experience for us. Yeah. And I think it laid down the foundation foundation for what could come in the future.
And plus, it's a very fast-growing segment of USA Crits, which
that's correct. Yeah.
Which is what we're going to talk about next. So Butcher Box Cycling Team focuses on criteriums. So we better explain what a criterium is for viewers who've never heard of the term.
Yeah, the criterium really is just a race usually takes place in a downtown area. It's on a short course. We'll say 1K, a mile to maybe 3/4 of a mile type scenario, lapped, a number of laps or timed type course. And it's an exciting scenario. It's an American style of racing. That's what we're focused on. Yeah. USA Crits is a great partner for us, and they're really doing some really cool stuff. They have set up a great program. It continues to grow. And they, part of the reason, the American Style Criterium is such an exciting place to race in. A lot of us have done them, and when you get to one that is one of the iconic ones, and the crowds are 5 deep and super loud, and there's music blaring, and there's just all this excitement. And our riders, for all intents and purposes, and all the riders there, that they become part of that community for the period they're there. Right. And it's really well received by those, particularly those long-standing races. Those historic races like Athens, Tulsa, Iron Hill, all those races that have quite a bit of history to them.
Yeah, they're huge. They're huge parties.
It's a great scene, and it's really I think we believe the future of the sport, particularly in America. USA Crits and Scott Morris has done a great job in terms of establishing a great methodology for teams to get support by participating in USA Crits as well. Yeah. They're kind of trying to establish a kind of a new revenue stream, a new revenue model. There's a lot of support that goes to the teams that sign up and kind of buy into the D1 level. Right. I think there was 11 or 12 teams that were in there this year.
We'll talk about the revenue streams. The way I understood it, it's coming from subscriptions to the TV series that is set up to follow each one of these races.
Yeah, there is. There's the USA Crits TV series. Right. You can log in, and there's great footage. We were talking about it earlier, and there's the viewing on there is really good, and the coverage on the races. They did some really cool stuff this year in terms of not only covering each corner of the race, but they had onboard cameras at some of the races. They had drones covering the races, and you had great viewing of the races. In the races we weren't at, it was great coverage to be able to watch the guys on TV, and most of the time we had some kind of a watch party, which was fantastic. Yeah. But there's definitely that revenue stream that gets kicked back to the teams. Right. There's certainly stipends and support that go back to the teams as well from USA Crits to the D1 teams for participating and making sure that they can get to venues, from housing to travel stipends, etc. It's a good model, and it's a very sustainable model, and I think it's really kind of laying the foundation for making it easier for fans to really follow the sport, follow the teams, and ultimately, when we actually got to the finals, we had such a great rivalry in sports, right? Like, who doesn't love a rivalry in sports? And by the time we got there was this great rivalry between Butcher Box, and Cliff Bar at the end of all of this, and it was a very respectful rivalry at the end of the day. But, as we got to the end of the season, we were very close and very tight. Right. And, if I recall correctly, some of the numbers, were pretty historic in terms of what was on USA Crits TV in terms of being able to view that, and people logging in to view that kind of scenario. Yeah,
well, explain. That's great. There's so much stuff in there. Explain a little bit about the teams in a crit environment. So in Athens, for example, and at the end of the series, how many teams were there, and how large was the field?
All the teams. When you sign up for the D1, there's commitment to showing up to the races, et cetera, and participating. So what's great from that perspective for the fans is they get to kind of start to see a team. For example, our team, they could see our team, at every one of these USA Crit races, and they would follow it. And it was interesting as you progressed. We started seeing these fans kind of showing up and going to these races, and a few times I thought they were maybe somebody's relative, or they knew somebody on the team, and it just turned out that they were fans. And they had the kind of the cowboy hat going that we did. Kind of had that theme going this year, and some of the cut-off sleeve T-shirts, and nobody knew them. They're just fans, and it was awesome, and it was great, and it was super appreciated by our guys to see that, and by us for sure to start to see that kind of following and support. But the way that the USA Crits organization and kind of forum is structured, you kind of get to follow those teams. So, by the time we were at the end, there was this kind of stack ranking of where the teams are at the team level. There's the individual rider accomplishments as well. I think we had 3 riders that ended up in the top 10 from an individual standing.
Right.
But then there was this really good back and forth between our team and Cliff Bar as the season progressed for the team category, and we were really focused on getting the team category. That was our main focus, right?
Yeah. So explain, how did you pull it off? Because it all came down to the last race of the whole series.
Yeah, I would say it came down to the last 12 laps, right? Yeah, so it came down to the last 12 laps.
So explain how that works. I mean, because these guys had a plan when they started off, and there's so much going on. They all have radios. And
yeah. So
you're on the course. Steve's out there. Give us a sense of the behind the scenes.
Yeah, so let me take a little bit further step back. So before every race, Steve sits down with the team. He was on the road with them a lot, and even when we're not on the road, we'll have a call. Steve sets up the calls with the team, and we sit down and kind of lay out the plan. These guys are seasoned. Steve's very seasoned at this as well in terms of crit racing, and they know the courses. And he is, for all intents and purposes, just a strategist on this stuff. So, he sits down, we talk, we know what our resources are in terms of the riders that are there, what they can do, and Steve walks through the plan, right? And everybody has input, and at the end of the day, you sit down as individuals, and Steve has said this before, like we sit down as individuals, and then they stand up and walk away as a team, and they go out and they execute the plan for each race, depending on what needs to happen. We were chasing down the team points, and a big inflection point for us was, we were really tight in the running, and then it was at Salt Lake City. In the final few laps, we were in the lead out. Our team was doing a lead out for the final few laps up against a couple of the other teams, and there was a crash, and it took out basically our entire team.
I heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it really, that was a real, I think, inflection point for our team. It was, what are we going to do now? It was a big setback. People were hurt, equipment was damaged. They're out on the road for the West Coast trip. Luckily Steve was able to be there and attend with them. We were back home, on the phone constantly trying to figure out what we need to do, how we need to get everybody back on this. And at that point we had a gap open up in terms of, are we going to be able to actually close this down from the team goal, which was to win the overall. So we figured out what we needed to do. We sat down with the riders. Steve sat down with the riders in particular, since he was out on the West Coast, and kind of walked through, hey, here's the plan. Here's what we need to do with the next race. Our back's up against the wall. Yeah. Not a bad thing here, because all we can do is move forward, right?
Right.
And all the riders accepted that. None of the riders, stepped back and said, hey, we're in trouble. It's over. It was, how do we get to the next step? And they're all competitors, and that's what we want. That's what we're always looking for.
Yeah. Well, you pulled it off. I mean, you won the series. You're 2019 champion. You win some cash, I guess, and that helps the team, some prestige. So that will help move the team forward. Just one more question on that, in a sense. Just what is it like? I mean, to be racing in these fields. I mean, you're going fast. Just give us a quick sense of just how fast and how dramatic.
Yeah. So for example, in the finals in particular, getting to the benchmark final where it all kind of ended. These races are pretty fast in terms of the guys are. I think at one point they said, I think Connor called back on the radio and said, I don't think we've dropped below 30, 31 miles an hour the entire race. And that's a famous race, Iron Hill, right? It's got that big, arguably the third hardest turn in all of American crit racing, right?
Yeah.
The speeds are high, but it is a team sport for sure, right? And USA Crits is really focused on making sure that teams need to be working together to try and win what they need to win from an overall team perspective, which is great. So it was, that was probably one of the most memorable scenarios for me is at Benchmark. Steve's on the radio with the guys. I'm on the radio with spotters we had around the course. Beth was on one of the radios near the finish line. She's calling back information to me. I'm giving information to Steve. Steve's relaying it to the riders. The riders are talking back to Steve. And they executed to plan, right? There was a plan, and we knew we needed to get these points, and the guys were absolute professionals in terms of, we need this there in the race, for those that don't know, there's points preems, point laps, right? So some of the laps, we needed to chase down, and we needed to make sure that our guys were there and our guys got those points. and they executed, right?
What a great way to finish up the season. I mean,
Yeah,
you finished
it
up
was-
at the very top. But so, I mean, what's the how do you cap that season? What's the plan for
Yeah,
next
so
year?
there's still room for improvement. I mean, we're hoping to really dominate the scene. Right now, I think we're probably one of the hottest American crit racing teams out there. So next year we'd like to come back and do it better, and then see if we can expand the team and expand the organization and really dominate the scene.
Yeah.
There's still teams that are out there that are super strong. All our competitors are super strong.
Right.
And that's the best part of our competitors, is that they bring out the best in us, and
Yeah.
we hope that we bring out the best in them.
You get stronger when you race against people who are stronger than you. Is there a chance that there's a USA Crits race in New England somewhere?
The calendar is certainly always being looked at. Scott certainly is always engaging the teams, always looking for good venues to be able to expand. I think that's a total
possible.
possibility,
Yeah.
for sure. Absolutely, yeah.
Wow, well that's great, Dino. I mean, thank you so much for giving us that overview on Fasturdays Racing Alliance and ButcherBox Cycling, and very best of luck to you and the team for next year.
Thank you. Totally appreciate it. We look forward to seeing everybody out there.
All right, everybody. That was Dino Piskopanis of Fasturdays Racing Alliance and ButcherBox Cycling Team. You can learn more about both organizations on Facebook. That's all we got time for right now. Thanks so much for watching. We'll talk to you again soon. All Things Bike is brought to you by FitWorks, Rider First Bike Fitting, Rider Matched Bike Sales. Locations in Peabody, Massachusetts, Waitsville, Vermont, and Ridgefield Park, New Jersey. And Frame and Wheel, eBay selling services for cyclists, bike shops, bike companies, and cycling-related nonprofit organizations. Time, space, cash, pick 3. And AD Bikes, the modern face of Austro-Daimler cycling and the bike company of the future. Become Bike. Become AD Bike.